everyone, to the Jankyard, the podcast. So, for today's episode, what we want to get into is the new set, Ikoria, Lair of the Behemoths. I'm sorry, I love pronouncing Behemoth. Please see the movie Reservoir Dogs and the great line of comedian Stephen Wright playing a radio DJ you never actually see, and he talks about coming down to see Big Daddy Don Bodine and his truck, the Behemoth. So I always like pronouncing Behemoth. Okay, moving on away from movies and back into magic. So Ikoria is the new set, and they've now rolled out the entire set. It's going to be starting on Arena on Thursday the 16th of April, and we've now got the full spoiler out. So, there's a lot to chew on with this set, and I want to get into what really interests me from the jank builder perspective. Firstly, let's talk about the gigantic elephant in the room, and that is the big creatures that are in this set. This set is chock full of gigantic creatures. That's kind of the whole bit. This is the Lair of the Behemoths. The fun angle they've taken on us is this mechanic mutate, which allows you, it gives a specific cost and allows you to cast that spell for its mutate cost. So then what you're doing there is you either put the creature over another target non-human creature you control, or you put it under it. And so then it mutates, and so what it does, it mutates into the creature on top, but the creature on the top gets all the abilities that are underneath it. So you can decide, if say you've got one non-human creature out there and you have a creature that has a mutate cost, you can play that and you can put it on top. So the card you put on top, that's the creature now, but it now has the abilities of the card that's underneath it. Or the one you can cast it for the mutate cost, slide it under your creature you have out. And now that creature you have out, you already had out, it's still the creature you have, but it also has the abilities of the card you just cast. Very funky way of doing things. I kind of wondered, when we heard about the Lair of the Behemoths, I definitely thought that we might be seeing the mechanic that they had in Unstable a couple of years ago. The one you played one creature, a base creature, and then you could put a second creature over top of it, and it made it look like they melded. And this is kind of like that, but card-wise, it's a little cleaner, and it looks a little better, and you're not completely, you're altering the creature, but you also get to decide who alters who. With that Unstable, you had to play one type of card first before you could put the other one on top. There was a very clear left side and right side, and the right side always had to come down first before you put out the left side on top. The left side was the side that had to do the mutating. With this mechanic, if you've got multiple ones that say mutate, then you can put different ones down. But once you start mutating, you always have to play one that has mutate to make changes. So, I mean, this just brings us some really cool creatures. And so, yeah, I mean, I've looked through them. We're not going to go too deep into the big ones. I'm just excited to play with the big guys. And each one has, there are a lot of the big creatures that have mutate. They have an ability that happens with the mutation. Like Illuna, Apex of Wishes, has flying and trample, and whenever it mutates, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land permanent card, put that card on the battlefield or into your hand. That's really powerful. And, the mutate cost is 6 mana, 3 generic, plus 2 blue, plus a hybrid, red or green. Or you can just play it as itself, which is a 6/6 for 2, a green, a blue, and a red. So, yeah, there's stuff like that. Luminous Brood Moth is another one. Another big creature, but it's not a mutator. It's just a nice big creature. Uh, 2 white for a 3/4 flying insect creature, and whenever a creature you control without flying dies, return to the battlefield under its owner's control with a flying counter on it. Wow. Uh, just amazing recursion. So, and a lot of these creatures, I'm not going to get into it too deep here, but a lot of these creatures, they have a Godzilla world version of them. So, like the first one I read there, Luna Apex of Wishes, it has Ghidorah, King of the Cosmos, and it's a creature, a 3-headed monster from the world of Godzilla, essentially that type, but it's still a Luna Apex of Wishes. The name's below it. So, and the Luminous Brood Moth. See, I don't really know Ghidorah, but I know Mothra. Mothra, Supersonic Queen, and they've made a Mothra card that is just Luminous Brood Moth. It's the same text and same sub name, but they're putting it in the world of Godzilla, which to me is just super cool. So there's just I'm not going to go into all of them. There's just a ton of these big creatures to play with that are going to make things really interesting, and I'm really excited about it. I think it's a cool part, especially with the mutate. It's going to make a lot of fun. Deck building is going to be a lot of fun. So as we get into this, I guess the first thing I need to talk about, whenever I talk about a new set, first thing I think about when I start looking at the new cards is big butts. You all know I love playing big butts. That's where we have enablers like Watley, Sun's Heart, and High Alert to allow creatures to do combat damage with their toughness as opposed to their power. And that's when you get out cards with big butts, which is large toughness, low power. They're called big butts because if you look at the numbers, power comes first. The toughness is the back end. It's the butt. So I like playing 0-4s and 0-3s and 1-4s and 0-5s because with those enablers, instead they're swinging like 4-4s and 5-5s. But they're cheap. Usually 1 and 2 mana cards. So I always look to see, okay, what can we do and in butts with cards from this set. And I'm trying to maximize this because this is the second last set where I'll be able to do this in standard. We have these 2 enablers, High Alert and Watley, which make this deck work. They will both rotate out come this fall when we go back to Zendikar. So we have this set now, the Ikoria set, and then we have M21, and then it's going to be, depending on whether they give us new enablers, but it's very unlikely that we'll be able to do a butts deck in standard for a while. So I want to enjoy it. So let's look at the cards that have really got me interested, and there's 4 of them, and so I'm just going to bring these 4 up. We're going to start with the one that's the sexiest. And it may not seem sexy when you're in draft. You'll look at this and go, meh, no. This is awesome in butts. For 1, blue, it's a common Aegis Turtle. It is a creature turtle. It is a vanilla 0-5. But it is 1 mana, 1 blue mana to get me a 5-5. And I just smash in with my 5-5 for 1 mana. That's value. And so, yeah, I'm really excited with this card. I had a friend tip me off about it. They saw the spoiler before I did, and I was just super stoked about it. Next one is another one I've been... it's going to fill a void that's been left since Once Upon a Time was banned in Standard last fall. And I think this could work really well in this deck. And the big issue I've had in my butts deck is I feel like if I get board wiped or I get some creatures removed and I get low on creatures, and we're deeper into the game, I'm drawing 1 card at a time. I'm low on gas. And I've tried different things since Once Upon a Time. I've tried Opt, tried putting hardcover on a creature so I could tap, draw, discard. It hasn't been great. I need something to help refill my hand, and I think I've found the answer. This is Lead the Stampede. 2 and a green for a sorcery. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal any number of creature cards from among them and put the revealed cards into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. With the current version I'm using in the deck, it's got about 25 creatures. So you should hit, in theory, at least a couple every time. Most times. I mean, there's variance. Sometimes you're going to hit 0. Sometimes you're going to hit 5. Fantastic. Fill up your hand. Sure, my opponent's going to know I've got all these creatures. I got to play around them a little bit, especially if they have counter magic. But that's fine. I've just filled up my hand. So, very excited with Lead the Stampede. And then there's a couple of cats that have me thinking I might make use of them. One is Maned Serval. This is a creature cat. 1 and a white for a 1/4. Okay, a 2 mana 4/4. I only play one of those in the deck, and it's right now, and it's Fae of Wishes because it gets me things, and it's also a 4/4 flyer for 2 mana. Maned Serval is not a flyer. It does have vigilance, and this is why I'm interested in it. A lot of times you want to swing in with your big butted guys when you have the enablers out, but you also want to block with them. I mean, they're very important as blockers. The Maned Serval, with the vigilance, allows you to do both. So that's why I'm interested. And then the other one I'm looking at, it's another cat. I'm looking at it strictly as a sideboard card. And it's Lurrus of the Dream Den. 1 and 2 white-black hybrid. But you gotta remember, the Butts deck is Bant. Green, white, blue. So no black. So this would be 1 and 2 white. Bit of a steep cost. But it's a legendary creature, Cat Nightmare. It has Companion. Let's talk really quickly about Companion. Companion is another interesting, complex mechanic. I feel they've got 2 complex mechanics in the set, Mutate and Companion. With Companion, it says that you may play this card from exile once per game. But at the beginning of the game, you have to declare, this is my companion. Much like you would declare in Game of Commander, hey, this is my commander. You declare, this is my companion. You set it out. But it's considered in your sideboard until you cast it. The trade-off is all the companions have an additional rule that you have to follow most of the time when it comes to deck building. And so this Lurrus of the Dream Den, I don't like its companion rule, which says each permanent card in your starting deck has converted mana cost 2 or less. Not going to do that in this deck because High Alert, Watley are both 3 mana, and the deck doesn't work without them. However, you can just put this card into your deck, ignore the companion text, and just treat it like a regular creature. And that's where I'm interested. Because it's a 3/2. Again, not great. I'd rather higher toughness than power. But it has lifelink, and here's the key part. During each of your turns, you may cast 1 permanent spell with converted mana cost 2 or less from your graveyard. I have a lot of cards. The vast majority of this deck is 2 or less creatures. So if I get creatures wiped out, and this is what I'm thinking of sideboard, okay, I'm playing against somebody who's got a lot of target removal or board wipes, and they're just kicking a lot of my creatures to the graveyard. All right, I'm going to bring this guy in, play him, and hopefully we can get 2 or 3 things back before he gets rid of the Lurrus. It's just an idea of maybe a way to mitigate a lot of removal. So that's why I'm interested in Lurrus. So those are the 4 I'm really looking at for the Butts deck, and when the set comes out on the 16th, we'll start playing with it. Now, I want to talk about some other things. So Menace is a thing in this set. There's a kind of a Menace Matters feeling to the set. The biggest one is Labyrinth Raptor. 1 black, 1 red. For a creature, Nightmare Dinosaur, it's a 2/2. It has Menace, or as I like to call it, many others, Menachi. And whenever a creature you control with Menace becomes blocked, defending player sacrifices a creature blocking it. 1 black, 1 red. Creatures you control with Menace get +1/+0 until end of turn. So there's already a lot of menace creatures in the previous sets. I mean, it's a regular keyword, and there's some really good menace cards. Think Massacre Girl and Bontu. So I think that there is a very legit menace tribal deck to be built in Rakdos in the black and red. So I'm very interested in giving that a try. Something else I was looking at as I went through these cards and jumped out is there are a ton of 2-color creatures. Now, there's a lot of 3-color as well. The 3-color is a big deal because you've got 5 lands that make one of 3. You can tap for one of 3 colors. And they go with the 3-color combinations that they call the pie that came in the Tarkir block. When I say the pie, look at the back of your card that shows the 5 colors in order, which if you go clockwise from the top, and it's white, blue, black, red, green. For the pie ones, you've got traditionally 2 colors that are beside each other, and then the color that is opposite that doesn't touch either one. So those are the 5 combos you'll see in this set that are have 3-color gold cards, and you also have lands that make all 3 of those colors. So those being Jeskai, blue, white, red, Mardu, red, white, black, Sultai, green, blue, black, and of course I knew I was going to blank. Temur, which is green, blue, red, and the final color combination, which I'm drawing a complete blank on. I knew this was going to happen. It's like, I'm going to have all the colors in my head. No, they're going to leave me. Yeah, so, sorry, Jeskai, this sounds about right, eh? Jeskai, Sultai, Temur, Mardu, and, well, for the life of me, I can't find the other one. I'm really trying, folks. Oh, Abzan. Sorry, Abzan, which is white, black, and green. So, there are a lot of 3 colors, and 3-color decks would be fun to make. And I guess while we're talking about the 3 colors, I guess I'll throw it really quickly before we get back to the subject of 2 colors. There are 5 3-color cards that I want to find a way to make at least one or some of them work, because they're just stupid. There is no other way to describe them, folks. There's just no other way. These are how do I describe them? Well, they're the Ultimatum cards. Let's call them that. Each of the 5 color trios, they're 7 mana cards. They're all sorceries, and their casting cost for each of them is 2 of one color, 2 of another color, and 3 of the other color. There are no generic mana symbols in any of them. Now, the cards are, for the most part, powerful. That's why I want to try to see if we can make them work, because it'd be crazy if you could. So let's just go over them really quickly. Eerie Ultimatum is the Abzan one. 2 white, 2 green, 3 black. Sorcery. Return any number of permanent cards with different names from your graveyard to the battlefield. Wow! If you're playing some graveyard shenanigans, and even just getting stuff put into your yard, but you especially, green and black certainly like graveyard shenanigans, you might be able to just put a whole whack load of creatures and other permanents, enchantments, just lands even, poof, right out onto the battlefield. Problem is the casting cost, and this is what's going to make trying to make any of these work a super duper challenge, but I want to try. The next one is Urgent Ultimatum. It is the Sultai one. 2 black, 2 blue, 3 green. Sorcery, search your library for up to 3 monocolored cards with different names and exile them. An opponent chooses one of those cards. Shuffle that card into your library. You may cast the other cards without paying their mana cost. Exile, emerge, and Ultimatum. It's not bad. You're going to get 2 really, in theory, you're going to pull out your 3 best cards that are left in your deck, or the best cards for the situation. You're going to get cast the 2 lesser of those cards. So this is okay, but I'm not so sold on it. For that mana cost, is it worth it? Genesis Ultimatum is the teamer one. 2 green, 2 red, 3 blue. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. Put any number of permanent cards from among them onto the battlefield and the rest into your hand. Exile it. Yeah, that's not bad. Again, pretty good. You probably get at least a couple out. Minimum, you might get all 5 out. That's pretty powerful. That's a big swing. But again, it's that mana cost is just it's insane. Next up is Inspired Ultimatum, which is the Jeskai one. 2 blue, 2 white, 3 red. Sorcery. Target player gains 5 life. Inspired Ultimatum deals 5 damage to any target. Then you draw 5 cards. Wow. That's... Yeah, the gain 5 life is fine. Dealing 5 damage to any target can really turn a board around or, pull your opponent's life total down. And then filling up your hand is good. But again, the big cost. And to me, this is the big one. This is the Mardu one. Ruinous Ultimatum. 2 red, 2 black, 3 white. Destroy all non-land permanents your opponents control. Boof! Just Wrath of God. Just board wipe. But asymmetrical board wipe. Only taking out your opponent's stuff, leaving you with this spectacularly immaculate, untouched board state. Again, the cost is insane, but boy, I'd love to try to make that work. So, that's what I was talking about from those. So let's go back to this idea of the 2 colors. I have my Happily Ever After Niv Mizzet deck. So with Niv Mizzet Reborn, this is the 5-color Niv Mizzet. It looks at the top 10 cards. When it hits the battlefield, you look at the top 10 cards. Reveal the top 10 cards of your library, and you can put any number of 2-color... you can put into your hand 1 of each 2-color pairing. So it won't put 3-color pairings in your or trios in your hands. Has to be just dual colored, and you can only put like 1 white green. If you pull 3 white green, you have to pick 1. Or if you pull 2 blue red, you have to pick 1. But if you've got 5 cards and they're all different color pairings, yeah, they'd all go into your hand. And so yeah, there are definitely some cards I saw here. Like I said, it's the triple color that's stronger. But I saw stuff like Skycat Sovereign, which is 1 blue, 1 white for a 1/1. Flyer Elemental Cat gets +1/+1 for each other creature you control with flying. And, you can also make, for 4 mana, you can make a 1/1 white catbird creature token with flying. And then you're in the catbird seat. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist that. So, there's cool cards like that. Won't get too deep into it, but, Back for More I like. It's 4 and a black and a green for an instant. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. When you do, it fights up to 1 creature you don't control. So, yeah, and Dire Tactics is one if you've got humans. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. Exile target creature. If you don't control a human, you lose life equal to that creature's toughness. So, tons of options, and really looking forward to getting in there with those. We talked about, very briefly there, about graveyard shenanigans. especially with green-black. There's so much graveyard shenaniganery in Theros and stuff from when Golgari came out in Ravnica set. Uh, you've already got that stuff in Standard that's available to you. And Ikoria has a number of cards. I'm not really going to get into them, but we've got a number of cards that are the Graveyard Matters cards. I mean, they are important. They care about your graveyard. Such as Boneyard Lurker. It says whenever this creature mutates, return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. The Back for More that I mentioned about getting a creature back from your graveyard to the battlefield. So, I think there's a really nice Graveyard Matters deck that is waiting to be made, and I look forward to trying to dig into it. Another deck that's waiting to be made is a cycling deck. Cycling is back. Cycling is a old or long-standing, I should say, mechanic. And while Mutate and Companion are new and are kind of complex, cycling is very simple. Cycling is an addition to a card. Usually the card has one ability and then it has cycling 4 and there's a cost. And you pay that cost, and then you discard this card, and you draw a card. So it really makes situational cards so much more useful. It allows you to bounce a card. Let's talk about one we're going to talk about a little later, hopefully, but we'll talk about here is one of the crazier cards, Shark Typhoon. Yes, it's Sharknado. 5 and a blue, and it's an enchantment. It says whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create an XX blue shark token with flying, where X is the spell's converted mana cost. Or you could pay 1 and a blue, X 1 and a blue, sorry, and you discard this card, and then you draw a card. And when you cycle Shark Typhoon, create an XX blue shark creature token. So whatever you paid for X, that's what your shark creature token is going to be. Now, I'll say most cycling aren't that complex, and I was talking about the tri-lands, the lands that make 3 different types of mana. Well, they're calling them tricycle lands because all of them, let's say, for example, Rogrin Triome, land, island, mountain, plains, and it's got all those names, so it's fetchable. Rogrin Triome enters the battlefield tapped. Cycling 3, so you can discard it for the cost of 3 generic mana and draw a card. So there's lots of cycling cards in this set, and I think especially in Pioneer you can look at putting together a really interesting cycling deck. And I want to, like I said, I mean, this is just my first impressions of the set, so I need to dig a little deeper and see what can we make for cycling. But I really feel it's Pioneers where it could really sing, and that's because you could pair it up with Amonkhet. And Amonkhet had a lot of cool cards in cycling and cycling matters. There was cycling decks that actually made it to the Pro Tour. And I think if you could sit down and look, okay, what are the really interesting cycling cards in this set, and what can we make work? And now I mentioned one of them. I mentioned was Shark Typhoon, and I would love to find a way to make that work. Another cool one is Reconnaissance Mission. 2 blue enchantment. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. Great. Or you can cycle it for 2. Another one to think about is 2, a white and a red instant. Zenith Flare deals X damage to any target and you gain X life, where X is the number of cards with a cycling ability in your graveyard. Some cool stuff. So, just something else to think about. Okay. So, I think, like I said, there's a lot of really good stuff in cycling. in Amonkhet. I think you can take the stuff in Amonkhet and you can pull together something really, really neat. So just something to think about. That's something I think in Pioneer. And when I say Amonkhet, I mean the Amonkhet block. Um, and it's definitely something I'm going to think about working on in Pioneer. We talked earlier about Mutate. I think there's a great chance for multiple mutation decks. We talked about the mechanic. There is a lot of Mutate cards. I would really like to see what we could do for just a straight up Mutate deck. And you just have all these monstrous cards with 2 or 3 cards on each one and doing crazy things. Something else that is in here a bit is Elementals. And we have a really good Elemental deck right now. It's Teamer colored. Or 4-color. If you use Yarok to double the triggers of everything. But you think Risen Reef and Omnath and Yarok and Thassa. I mean, that's a 4-color deck. It's a little nutty, but... so it's worth taking a look. There's a bunch of cards in here in this new set that care about elementals. And one that's really interesting, it's not even an elemental itself, and that is Kahira the Orphan Guard. And it's 1 and 2 hybrid green and white. Legendary creature Cat Beast. Companion. So again, it's a companion, and it says each creature in your starting deck is a cat, elemental, nightmare, dinosaur, or beast card. Now, if you're playing something that's all elementals, might be worth a try. The only issue with some of those elemental decks I've had is they do have cards like Paradise Druid or Paradise Druid that ramp. But Leafkin Druid is another ramper, and it is an elemental, so maybe you can get away with it. And so if you do that, play it as a companion, then you can cast it from outside the game, so you don't have to hope you draw it. You'll know you'll get to play it once. It is a 3/2 vigilance creature, and it has each other creature you control that's a cat, elemental, nightmare, dinosaur, or beast gets +1/+1 and has vigilance. So immediately buffs up all your elementals. So it's kind of exciting. There are now it's 1 double green, but if you're playing the Leafkin Druid, it makes 1 or 2 green. So I don't think that's a big stretch, and I think it's worth considering Kahira the Orphan Guard. The other one is Gigantha the Wellspring. It is 4 and 1 hybrid green-red mana for legendary creature Elemental Elk. So it's an elemental. Its companion cost is no card in your starting deck has more than 1 of the same mana symbol in its mana cost. I have to take a look at the existing deck, but I think we might be okay there. I mean, the big cards are Yarok and Omnath, and they both have 3 mana symbols, but they're all different mana symbols. So you might be able to, again, like Kahira, get away with playing this as a companion. And its funky thing is you can tap it to add white, blue, black, red, green. It says this mana can't be spent to pay generic mana costs. Okay. The white might go unused, but the elemental deck I have has the other 4 colors, so you still can tap it to make 4 color mana. You could cast Yarok or Omnath and still have one of the other colors outstanding. So it's worth considering, playing that as well. So I'm excited. Elementals is definitely another potential deck to look at. As we go along here, cats. I love cat decks. I have a cat commander deck. I've played cats in previous standard. There is a cat deck that wants to be made in Pioneer. It's one of the ones I got to sit down and work on. And I think we've got another opportunity for cats here. Definitely standard and definitely Pioneer. Cats, especially in standard and Pioneer, are in Pioneer are white and green. In this new set, there's definitely a potential for it to be white and black or white, black, green. Kahira the Orphan Guard that we already talked about, the companion that says your starting deck has no other creatures other than, and rhyme off all those creatures, including cats. But you could also play Arboreal Grazer with it because it says each other creature you control that's a cat, or sorry, each creature card in your starting deck is a cat, elemental, nightmare, dinosaur, or beast card. Arboreal Grazer, it's a beast. So yeah, I mean you've got this, and it gives all your creatures that's a cat, or those other types, +1/+1 in vigilance. So it's a cat lord. And then you have other guys. So it's 1 and 2 hybrid white green, the Kahira. So you could not play green, and it's a 1 double white, or you could play green. But we've also got Necropanther, which I'm very interested in. It's a cat nightmare. It's 2 and 2 hybrid white black mana. Is its mutate cost, or its regular cost is 1, a white and a black. It's a 3/3, and whenever this creature mutates, return target creature card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard, back to graveyards again, to the battlefield. But it's a cat nightmare, so another cat. We talked about Luris earlier when we talked about Butts, and it's the companion card that allows you to cast during each of your turns to cast 1 permanent spell with converted mana cost 2 or less from your graveyard. And then another guy here is Cub Warden, 3 and a white for a rare creature cat. It has a mutate cost of 2 double white. It's lifelink. Whenever this creature mutates, create 2 1/1 white cat creature tokens with lifelink. And it's a 3/5. And then there's just tons of good cats in white and green. And some of them even in black. Hint a Twilight Panther from one of the Ravnica sets. It's, I believe, 1 and a white, but it also has, for 1 black, you can give it Death Touch until end of turn. So, yeah, there's a chance for a white-black or an Abzan, which is white-black-green, cats deck. And so I'm always interested in cats. Something else is I've wanted to build for a while is the blue-white Flyers deck. In one of the earlier sets this year, we've got Empyrean Eagle, or in current standard, Empyrean Eagle, which is a Lord. So there's, all these different blue-white Flyers, and a blue-white Flyers deck can be very simple, but very effective. And there's one card that really jumped out at me from that, and I just want to pull it up here. It's Jubilant Skybonder. 1 and 2 blue-white, 2 blue-white hybrid mana to give you a 2/2 creature human wizard with flying, and it says creatures you control with flying have spells your opponents cast that target this creature cost 2 more to cast. So you're making all of your flyers much harder to get hit with targeted removal. Yeah, I'm excited for that. And it's a 2/2 flyer for 3, which is not bad, especially if you're playing blue-white. So I think, and there's some other possibilities to consider in the deck, but that's the one that really jumps out when I look at making a blue-white Flyers deck. Moving on, I want to hit humans. I play humans in Modern. I've been trying to put together humans decks in Standard and Pioneer as well. There's definitely some interesting additions for humans in this set. What's really interesting about what's available is, like, the humans deck I have right now in Standard is Boros. It's red and white. But there are some really interesting cards that would make you go either to black and white, or even Mardu, which is black, red, and white, in Standard. And in Pioneer, I'm thinking more black and white or Esper in Pioneer and Historic. In Historic, you would have Reflector Mage to go with Kitesail Freebooter. Reflector Mage, Kitesail, and then Historic, you'd have Kaiso Freebooter, and Meddling Mage, and that combo is really good. You play the Freebooter, get to see what's in their hand, take one card, and then you play the Meddling Mage and name the other big card, or, the big card in their hand you don't want to see them play. You can do that in Historic, and with some of these other cards that are coming out in Ikoria, there's some really interesting stuff, like General Kudro of Draneth. This is the big one for me. It's a mythic. For 1, a white and a black. It's a 3/3 legendary creature human soldier. Other humans you control get +1/+1. Da-da-da-da. It's a lord. Love it. Whenever General Kudro of Draneth or another human enters the battlefield under your control, exile target card from an opponent's graveyard. Then for 2 mana, sacrifice 2 humans, destroy target creature with power 4 or greater. So, yeah, a lord, powerful thing. But then he's got a buddy. He's got his goon, the General's Enforcer. 1 white, 1 black for a 2/3 creature human soldier. Legendary humans you control have indestructible, like the General. And then for 2, a white and a black, exile target card from a graveyard. If it was a creature card, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. So just a powerful card for 2 mana. But again, white and black. And card I did touch on earlier, super powerful in the humans deck, is white Dire Tactics. 1 white, 1 black. For an instant, exile target creature. Woof, gone. If you don't control a human, you lose life equal to that creature's toughness. But if you do, and you most likely will in a humans deck, then you pay nothing extra. You just pay 1 white and 1 black. Awesome card. And there's one other neat white card for humans that I like, and it's Sanctuary Lockdown, 2 and a white. Humans you control get +1/+1. And for 2 mana, tap 2 untap humans you control. Tap target creature an opponent controls. I like the Anthem Lord effect, more importantly. But again, neat little card and neat to put in the humans deck. There's some interesting cards in the set that care about mana cost. Let me see if I can explain this. There are a few cards that talk about whether mana cost is odd or even. For example, Extinction Event, 3 and a black. Choose odd or even. Exile each creature with converted mana cost of the chosen value. And 0 is even. There's cards like that. Lavabrink Venturer, 2 and a white. As it enters the battlefield, choose odd or even. Lavabrink Venturer has protection from each converted mana cost of the chosen value. That's pretty powerful. And the other one's Obosh the Prey Piercer, 3 and 2 black and red hybrid for a legendary creature Hellion Horror at rare. It's a 3/5. And its companion. Your starting deck contains only cards with odd converted mana costs and lands. If a source you control with an odd converted mana cost would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals double that damage to that permanent or player instead. So there are some really neat cards that ask whether your mana cost is odd or even. It's just a handful. And, I don't know if it's enough to build a whole deck around, but it's really not. But it's still something you can think about when you're building a deck. Okay, how do we have fun with these cards? So, that's something else that's worth taking a look at. Also, there's been a flash deck in Standard very recently, a Simic flash deck and a couple other flash decks. There is some flash cards, and this one I really like. It's Cunning Nightbonder for 2 hybrid blue-black mana. It's a 2/2 creature human rogue. It has flash, and spells with flash you cast cost 1 less to cast and can't be countered. So, especially I think if you go into Pioneer and you've got that wider range of cards to draw upon, you can make a really interesting Flash Matters deck that takes advantage of this and just making everything cheaper. But you can also do it in Standard as well. You're just more likely in Standard you're playing blue-green, maybe blue-green-black. If blue-green-black, then the mana base is much better. If it's just blue-green, then it's a double blue. So, yeah, I mean, okay, we just raced through it. There's so much meat on this bone. And I'm going to be having a lot of fun making decks for the next few months. I know I'll be playing with these cards as soon as the set comes out, and I know with the current situation, I won't be going to pre-release at my store. I always love going to several pre-releases on pre-release weekend, because at my store you get to play with the new cards, you get to put it together. I love playing sealed, and I love exploring the cards and learning about them, and I love playing against people I know. That's one of the best things is, I thought, well, I could go to a pre-release in a different city, but it's not the same. I want to play with these people, and that's one of the great things about Magic. We're not going to have that right now because of COVID, because of the shutdown on interactions and gatherings. It's not going to happen, but there's going to be a lot of fun to be had on Arena, and so I'm definitely looking forward to it at this time as we come up on what would have been the pre-release weekend here very soon, but instead we'll still have a lot of fun with it on Arena. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to discovering these cards and tinkering and making sweet decks. So thank you very much for joining me for this week's podcast. I think we covered a lot of ground. Like I said, there's a lot of ground left to cover, but that's fine. We'll cover it in coming weeks. So once again, I want to thank you for joining me. Remember that we stream at least twice a week, Wednesdays and Sundays, and sometimes on other days, at twitch.tv/JankyardMTG. And if you want to find out when we're going live or other details, tournaments we're hosting, we've been hosting historic and standard tournaments on Sundays lately. So check our Facebook and Twitter, find out more about those, especially Facebook. We put a Facebook event on, and that's Jankyard MTG, all one word, on Facebook. And on Twitter, we're at JankyardM. And also you can check out the website, jankyardmtg.com. It's a work in progress. It's coming. And please, right now our podcasts are on YouTube. So if you want to like and subscribe here on the YouTube channel and hit that notification bell, we'll let you know when more of our videos and podcasts are coming out. And we should have several videos that'll dive into a lot of the cards we just talked about. We're going to put out a series of videos regarding Ikoria and the different potential decks that we could be putting together, and the cards we're looking forward to playing with in Ikoria. So once again, this is JT. Thanking you for joining me for this week's podcast, and we'll hope to talk to you very soon.